So let's take a look at bubble 11 here. This is your challenge bubble. We're not going to work through all of these. E, F, and G are all different variations on free play bubbles where they don't have one single thing we're driving towards. So we're not going to work through those together, but we are going to take a look at A, B, C, and D, and those have particular emphasis, especially the first two, on that whole picture frame effect. So let's get started with A. So I will remind you that we're back to this Desserts of the World web page, so you're all going to have something that looks very different here because I've done different things with different classes, and you all could have typed in different colors than I typed in. So the look you have here probably is going to vary greatly from mine, but the directions are going to be the same. So directions up top here say to find the rules in the style sheet that set the image border's color and width. We're supposed to change both of those and then try out some of the different styles. So we'll switch over to the style sheet, the CSS, and we're going to scroll down until we see that image tag. So the first thing it says we can do is we can change the border color. So I'm going to go ahead and change the border color. I'm just going to go simple black on mine so we can see it. Again, we knew how that one worked. We did that one yesterday, so I'm not too concerned about that one. My border width is crazy thick right now, so I'm going to dial that down quite a bit here. That will help the picture look perhaps a little more normal, a little bit less stressed in terms of how it appears on the page. So I'm going to bring that down to 10 pixels. And as you can see, doing so also really changed the paragraph look on my page because the picture frame is not so thick that it's pushing the paragraph out of the way now. And then the other one, and the one we didn't have a chance to do yesterday, is the border style. So notice here, they list at the top in the directions the other options for us. So we can also use dotted, dashed, and double. So I would encourage you to try each of those here just so you can see what they look like. So I'm going to start with dotted, and it's going to look like exactly like it says. It's going to be a bunch of dots around the picture instead. That's definitely a distinct look. You can do dashed, which is just simply a broken line around the picture frame. Or you can do double. And double is simply a double kind of thin line, I guess I'll call it, around the picture there to make that picture frame. Again, you choose what you want to use. Doesn't specify which one you have to use. It just wants you to use one of them. So even if you wanted to stick with solid, that it originally said would be fine. But now you know the choices you can put there. Basically, everything starts with a D except for the solid, dotted, dashed, or double. So remember, if you start just typing, it will try and autocomplete. So if we just type the letter D, it's going to show me 3 out of the 4 options. So that might help you out remembering that this code language does give you that option to kind of autofill once you type something that matches. Okay, other direction up top says put a border on another type of page element, such as one of the headings. So again, sometimes we get stuck in our minds that this can only be on this one thing. I would only have this picture frame concept around an image. But that's not true. You can put the picture frame around anything you want. So let's put the picture frame around where it says Desserts of the World there, which I'm almost certain is an H1. So you will notice I copied out that code, and as I copied it and pasted it in there into the H1 tag between the curly braces, as you can see, it works. It's there now. I can see it. If yours doesn't auto-update for some reason, hit refresh and save. If you're still getting errors, please make sure that you're between the curly braces for H1 there. It has to be in between those curly braces, not after one. Don't accidentally delete one, something like that. And then you can make any modifications you want there. So maybe I want to go back to a solid because it just looks a little funny to me. All right, maybe I want to thin out the radius. All right, maybe I want to thin out the width. I don't know. Again, you can make any changes you want there. It's totally up to you. Okay, so pause if you need to, otherwise let's keep going. So bubble B is about adding those rounded corners. So those rounded corners, again, come from the radius code. Again, radius doesn't quite have the same meaning that it does in math class. Remember, radius would be the distance from the center of the circle to the edge. But here we're talking about how we round the corners. So you can go ahead and tinker with that radius number in the image code. And again, just see what it does. We've talked about this. We literally just looked at it in the last bubble. We talked about it yesterday, so I don't think there's a lot of mystery here. Certainly not as much as they kind of present it here to be, but you can tinker with that number and see how it impacts your image. Now, one thing to note, if you do shrink your image down enough and make the width and the height similar, you will basically get a rounded shape, because right now, because it's so wide, we're basically getting an oval. All right, but if I didn't have the extra width in the middle there, basically, what's creating the oval, all right, and I just basically had the rounded pieces put together, it would start to look circular. So I will show you here, for instance, if I start to decrease the width of that picture, again, you probably want to start trying to make the width and the height more towards the same there. You will see, there we go, it becomes circular in fact. Remember, if the width and the height are the same and there isn't that distance across there to make that oval, of course you get a circle, because a circle has the same diameter all the way across or the same radius all the way across. So it would make sense that that picture would then become a circle. All right, so make the changes that you want to make there to the radius, and let's keep going. All right, so C is about something a little bit different. C is about the concept of margin. So we know what margins are from last year. Margins were what we took in a doc to create blank space. Notably, at the beginning of the year, you typed business letters and personal letters, and you created a 2-inch top margin, which meant there was 2 inches of blank space before the document actually started there. All right, so margins do specify how much space should be around an element. So here it has a little bit different meaning. We can add margin around a thing here as opposed to just the top of the page. So it can be around a paragraph, or it can be around a heading. If we're trying to put something off by itself, we add the idea of margin. So go to the rules CSS file in the rule set, and we're going to look for the image tag. And down here in mine's in line 23, we see here margin. All right, and so go ahead and take that margin and let's just take it right up so we can see the visual change. Okay, so I made it 100 pixels, and as you can see, I've got a bunch of blank space here now around my image. It pushed a lot of text around here, so to create this big gap that I have around this very weird looking image. If we put it back to 10, you can see how it changed. As you can see, the text here and the image really nestled up right against each other again. All right, that's the whole idea of margin. So if you start to type in margin, you're also going to get a lot of different choices. So you can specify which way you want the margin to go. Do you want it to go to the bottom, to the left, to the right, or the top of something? So if you just type margin, it's going to go in all the way around. But any one of these 4 choices that I just listed off, when you start typing margin that you'll see, that's going to create margin in just that specific direction. So you want to think about, do I need margin to go in a certain direction, or do I want it all the way around something? Again, you can experiment here. You're not going to damage anything by changing margin to margin left and then putting it back. So you can always try this to see what it looks like and if it's something you would want or not. So here I'll change margin to margin left. All right, I don't really see a whole lot of change there. All right, here's margin right. Again, don't see a lot of change there. But if you put that number up to 100, all right, margin right, well, now we see some difference because there's this big gap. The picture is like slid over because it's trying to make 100 units of distance over here that's now basically blank because it's the margin. Margin left, hopefully we'll see a similar change. Yep, so margin left, it took and pushed this text way over because it wants 100 units of margin here, 100 units of blank space here. Okay, so you can add the margin to something else, a text element, wherever you want on this one. That's totally fine. It doesn't give you any specificity as to where it wants that margin. Okay, and the last one is Bubble D, how to add a background image from a URL. So this is a lot different, something that really doesn't seem to fit in with what we've done previously here. So this says the background of an element can be set to any image that you would like. Just like when inserting a photo, you can use the image's URL name. Find the property in the style sheet that controls the background image and change the image to one of your choice. Okay, so they pretty much told us it's in the CSS, so let's go to the CSS. And right up top, we see something that's different. So here we go, line 2. It says URL. So remember, that's Uniform Resource Locator. That's the way we talk about stuff that's on the internet. And in this case, because it just says a file name, that means it's uploaded right here into my file manager. As you can see, here's this file called Background Cloud. It's right here. So it's kind of like putting an image on your web page in the HTML, but it's actually a little bit easier. It goes in the body tag. We specify URL. And then we put in quotation marks the name of the file that's in my file manager. And that's how we get this background picture effect. That's something you might want to do on your web page, so that's probably useful to know. So to note here, just like with the HTML, you can also just put a full web link in there. So I'm going to paste in a link I found here to a picture of the mountains in Sedona, Arizona. So here, notice it's got to start with HTTP, HTTPS, and it's got to have a .jpg in it somewhere. And notice here's my .jpg, or it could be one of the other file types. And you can see how that changed my web page. Is now the web page now has the mountains in it that I downloaded from this picture on the web. So that's another thing you can do there if you don't want to download a file and import it and all that good stuff. Just remember, if something happens to this web link, if something happens to this file on whoever website you're taking it from, if they take it down, if they delete it, whatever, the background of your web page is going to be gone. So that's the advantage of putting that file in your file manager. So you can make the choice you want, upload a picture there, or use one from the web and give it a try. And when you're done, that's it. That's the end of lesson 11. Make sure you complete that assessment bubble in Bubble 8.